Well, of course, you know, the P-47 is, in my opinion, the greatest airplane they ever built. Of course, you will got to realize that anybody who flew an airplane in the war and came home thought that was the best airplane ever built, too.
Yeah.
But now I'm finding out that the P-47 had a much better combat record than any other fighter aircraft.
But the P-47 had the reputation to really being able to take a lot of punishment. And I think that's why everybody really liked it.
It was like a tank, really. It could take that much punishment.
Shot up, shot down, spun, crashed, burned, prisoner of war, jet fighter race. I've done it all. I've flown everything from P-40s to the F-111 swing wing.
Well, I'm curious if you could tell us why they called the P-47 the Jug.
There's all kinds of reasons, but the real gist of it was that it is a juggernaut. Juggernaut that just sweeps and kills everything in front of it, and that's what that P-47 did.
Bomb sight in the P-47. Pilot does his own aiming. Direct hit.
I have seen it on the rugged side go through buildings, and the guy would step out, brush himself off, right through a barn. It was as tough as nails. And it had rails on the thing that had heavy stuff. And actually, when a flak would go, you'd find yourself crouching down behind those rails, and every now and then looking up and seeing what's going on. It'd take a lot of hits. I got hit 10, 12 times in a row. I mean, big stuff, big holes, tails dragging, wires cut. Just made it. Land and then go on fire.
You got plenty of ground fire and you hit 7 times?
Well, I lost 7 airplanes. I'm only guessing a little bit, but of my 101 missions, I think I probably was hit maybe half of the time. I mean, you just get bullet holes or something like that. On the other hand, I would say I was hit pretty hard 7 times and lost 7 airplanes in the war.
But you walked away from them or parachuted out?
I never jumped. I
didn't?
crashed them all. I left 4 on the countryside, and I lost 3 trying to land them on the aerodrome when I got back home.
My first airplane, you didn't get a plane until you had about 35 missions because we had 45 pilots and only 25 planes. So anyway, another lad was flying my airplane, took a shell in the fuselage, and they got so many holes in it that it didn't cut any cables. He flew it back, but they had to junk it. They couldn't patch it up, it had so many holes in it.
I flew the Thunderbolt, and it was such a plane that if you landed it, if you belly landed it in a group of trees, it would just plow its way through, and you were safer to belly land it than to bail out of it. So I had decided right from training, first in the P-47, that I would never bail out unless it was on fire.
My son, he said, "Dad, didn't they have you train and parachute jump?" I said, "Mike, I would never jump." I said, "I was in a plane that could go through a forest, a brick wall, or anything else."
One time I had my whole right stabilizer shot off, a hole in my vertical fin, a hole in the turbo supercharger right behind the pilot seat where a big bullet hit, and a hole in my right wing that you could stand up in. And I had to fly that airplane at 250 miles an hour because I only had one stabilizer to hold the nose up, and I foolishly tried to land it on our 3,500-foot strip runway at 250 miles an hour. And I went off the end, cartwheeled it, busted it all up, and crawled out from underneath it.
I've seen planes come by back with cylinders shot out of them. I've seen them with holes big enough in the wing. You know where your ammunition was, you had a door over that thing. That door would fly up and be over the aileron. You could still fly the crate back. And I've seen holes in the wings that you could crawl through. You could still bring it back. I've seen the tips of the wings shot off.
I came back from a mission with three jugs shot off that engine. 3 cylinders gone. Oil streaming over me and the back of the airplane. And it's boom, chicka boom, chicka boom, all the way from Italy to Corsica. No problem. It was tough air.
But it's no wonder that you got some affection for that P-47 if you walked away from 7 of them.
Oh, that's right. It was a wonderful airplane. And as I say, we had a squadron strength of 35 pilots. We lost 50 in the war. Only 3 were shot down by enemy aircraft, and all the rest of them got up by ground fire.
I'm not sure which model this one is, but maybe you know.
Well, it's one of the Razorbacks. It was one of the earlier models.
Yeah.
I flew the bubble top. We only had one of these left in the squadron when I got there, and it was K for clunker. It was an old one.
We learned to fly the P-47 Thunderbolt, which was my combat airplane. Well, I've flown a P-40, a 1,200 horsepower single engine fighter in advanced flying school. We had about 10 hours of flying time, which is enough to get you a feeling of what I would like to fly a fighter. So I took my training in P-47 and we learned to do practice everything we'd already learned with this gigantic airplane, which was then the world's largest, fastest, heaviest single-engine fighter. There was no other fighter in the world that could match the 2,000 horsepower engine, the massive 10,000 pound empty weight, 16,000 pound gross weight that we had when we got to combat. And I was amazed to find that this big hulking airplane was probably the easiest airplane I ever flown. The configuration, the way it flew, it was just a dream to fly. It had flexibility. You could climb from ground up to 35,000 feet with comfort and enjoy the view over the Gulf of Mexico. It was a beautiful sensation.
The P-47 was designed as a high-altitude escort fighter. As a matter of fact, my instructor was a P-38 pilot who came out of Africa and came back to teach us. And he didn't think very much of the P-47 because it was so big and so ugly and so heavy that he didn't think much of it. He said that any son of a bitch that is caught under 25,000 feet in this airplane ought to be shot down. But when I got into combat, I saw 25,000 feet about 3 times because it had been determined then that the P-47 was a much better ground attack airplane in support of the infantry.
But the toughest airplane was ever made. People could say anything they want about the F-88, not the F-86, but the P-51. The P-51 was liquid-cooled engine. Guaranteed 10 minutes and she will seize. You lose the coolant.
The P-51 couldn't take the punishment that we could, mainly because they had an inline engine and they get hit any place and it cuts the cooling system and they've had it. Where I came home one time with 2 cylinders knocked out of the engine and the old baby still brought me back to France.
And all the numbers are in the book as far as victories, but we had most of the guys who made ace that were in jugs came back. A lot of guys made ace at P-51s and finally got it. The 51 had its real deal when it was able to go to Berlin. We could not take the jug to Berlin. I don't care how many tanks you put on, what you did, we could not escort the bombers to Berlin. And that's what they wanted.
All of our gas was internal in the fuselage, and we only had about 250 gallons of gas in the fuselage. In order to extend the range, we could put a 150-gallon tank under each wing, and I think the maximum we could get on the belly, again because of size, was a 75-gallon. My longest mission was about 4.5-hour flight. Actually, if we didn't have any external tanks, we could maybe fly for about an hour and a half. And that depended because this airplane, at maximum cruise and leaned out as much as you could possibly lean it out, you could get 50 gallons an hour. But at full throttle, you'd use 250 gallons an hour in combat experience. So you can see we didn't really have a lot of range as far as time was concerned.